Hi, Howard Del Monte. Welcome to the Clarity Commentary. Man, last week was a roller coaster. You know, in an election year, we get a lot of volatility, and this year was no different. And then, boom, this guy, Michael Burry, placed a short, which is a bet that stocks will go down on two of our favorite stocks, PLTR and NVDA. And he bet about $1 billion against them. Why that's important is because around 2005, this guy looked at these things called mortgage-backed securities, which were like a portfolio of loans that banks were selling, and the loans were on people's houses, mortgages. And the banks sold them as AAA, which meant that they're super safe, right? When this guy looked at them, he realized that these loans were full of adjustable rate mortgages, which meant the payments would go up over time. And he found out that people didn't have the income to pay for those loans, and they were junk. They were not AAA, they were garbage. So it was a no-brainer. So he bet $1 billion against those, and in a couple of years, of course, he was right. And he made $700 million, and he pocketed $100 million for himself. And even Christian Bale, the famous actor, played this guy in that movie, The Big Short. So when he calls CNBC and he says, I want to come on and I want to talk about the AI bust that just happened, and I bet $1 billion against it. So of course they want him on, because he's got major clout and he's going to get their ratings to go through the roof. So of course they want to bring this guy on. And the crazy thing is, if he scares people as a short seller and the stock goes down, he makes more money. So you got to realize, is he a greedy capitalist, or are we wrong on the AI revolution? So let's go ahead and review some facts. So our first fact is the S&P 500. You know, we had a pretty good year. We're up about 12% in total. So I'm not too worried about the stock market, but that's kind of long-term thought. Maybe we're thinking too long-term. So let's check out a more short-term thought. So if you look at earnings just last week, so two important companies reported last week. One was Meta, which is Facebook, and the earnings were dynamite. And within, maybe 2 days, the stock dropped about $100 a share. And even though earnings were awesome, and it has part to do with this bet that Michael Burry did, but the second company to report earnings was Palantir. The earnings were so good, it was crazy. When you own a company, it's exactly the kind of thing you want to hear. And so basically, in all the conference calls I listened to, the AI boom was still on. Everything's great. Spending is great. Everything's good. So nothing I'm worried about there. That is a short-term thing that is happening right now. So we know right now in the economy it's good. But another fact to add to that is 80% of the S&P 500 companies have reported earnings, and 83% of those beat those earnings. So you got to realize, if 83% of the companies out there are doing awesome, it's kind of hard to sell that maybe this race is over, because it doesn't look like it is if 83% are doing better than anyone expected. So let's go ahead and look at another fact, just beat this to death, right? So Jerome Powell's out there cutting interest rates, which is good for the economy. We anticipate he's going to cut rates from 3.75 to 4%. And the advantage of that is all of a sudden you get a housing boom. People spend trillions of dollars that's not theirs. They're buying houses, they're buying buildings, they're doing stuff to grow the economy. People in construction are finding jobs. That creates massive growth. Again, that's a great thing for the economy. Let's check just one more thing just to make sure that we're in a good spot. Last thing, US-China made a trade deal. That's a really important trade deal because they've got these things called rare earth minerals in China that they mine. Now, I don't think we're going to be mining stuff like that in the US because it's really dirty and gross, and it's easier to get them from somewhere in the third world like China. So we can go ahead and buy those. Now that we have a trade deal, we can get those from China and we can bring them here, and that will help us in the AI race. So the thing is, the AI race is still on. The economy is doing awesome. Stock market's doing great. Earnings are great. China trade deal. Economy is good. Next we get a housing boom. That's awesome. So, summing this up, I feel very good about the economy. We're going to go ahead and stay invested. We're happy with where we're at. I anticipate within a couple of weeks, we're going to return to normal growth and you're going to watch your account go up. If you have any questions, feel free to call me. If I change my mind on anything, you know that I act. And last week, I bought a couple of stocks. I didn't sell anything. Thank you so much.